So, as our recording has started, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for this afternoon, Mucharfara Georges Punungwe. He is an undergraduate student majoring in economics and minoring in theater. Georges, at this time, I would like to transfer this presentation over to you. Georges, I will continue to talk as you troubleshoot on your end, and I can hear you and see you. So has Mr. Georges
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties all of a sudden.
Is no problem.
I apologize.
Sir. No problem. Are you able to turn on your camera?
Can you see me now?
We can, Mr. Georges. Thank you.
All right, perfect.
All right. We will transition it back over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Muchafara Georges Punungwe. Thank you so much for tuning in to this wonderful live event. First of all, I'd like to thank Christopher Medley and everybody who put in a lot of hard work, who planned and strategized and put this all together so that they give people like us an opportunity and a platform to speak about the richness and history of Black History Month and what it means to us, what it means to everybody here. So without further ado, I'd like to present my commemorative speech about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movements, how the impact that they made in this world, and how we, the next generation, can take it from there. The greatest objective we can ever achieve, the holy grail of our existence and meaning to life, is to history does not remember the greats for what they have done for themselves, but it celebrates the greats for what they have done for us. Today, I am humbled and honored to celebrate with you one of the greatest men that history nor the world will ever cease to forget, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In 1929, January 15th, America and the rest of the world was blessed to receive a phenomenal person. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, which was then and still is now the home of most prosperous and eminent African Americans in this country. And his love touched the minds of those shackled by chains of hatred unquestionably preceded him. Growing up as a young child in Zimbabwe, my father once told me a proverb that his father once told him. He said to me, "Son, work hard for the good of yourself, for the good of your family, and for the good of those around you." What I realized from that proverb after all these years was, we were not brought here to amuse ourselves with selfish achievements by taking endlessly, seeking total power, and thrive on pride. We were brought here instead to give passionately, empower with conviction, and show compassion through humility. For that is the essence of what makes a family unbroken. Dr. King was but he wasn't alone. For it may take a soldier to win a battle, but it takes an army to win a war. In the 1950s, the audacity of the civil rights movement was born. For almost over a decade, this army mobilized and fought relentlessly against the dehumanization of people of color. Their activism, enacted by brave and intelligent people, the likes of Dr. King himself, the illustrious Rosa Parks, John Lewis, Jesse Jackson, Malcolm X, and many more. That wasn't only a movement, but it was a conglomerate, starting organizations such as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Congress of Racial Equity, and many more that still play a huge part in our lives today. Yes, these movements systematic oppression and desegregation. But the ultimatum of that movement was to break the chains of all oppression, of all systematic oppression, from social justice to economic persecution. Dr. King believed no matter who you are or where you came from, if you are being immorally oppressed and abused, then we are all fighting the same battle. If you are being oppressed or because of your religion, culture, nationality, then we should be all fighting against the hatred and ignorance of others. To the millennials and Generation Z, we are here because of the sacrifices of the older generation. Activity and technology, imagine how much we can achieve for the next generation going forward. However, Rome was not built in a day. So just like eating an elephant, it's going to take one bite at a time. So find whatever it is that you're good at, refine it, gain influence from it, and use that influence to make a difference in your homes, in your communities, in your cities, and the nation. Eventually, the whole world will follow suit. In conclusion, though we came so far, we still have a long journey ahead of us. Dr. King's dream was about love, peace, and harmony. Not only does that make it our dream, but it definitely makes it our conviction. A conviction we must seek diligently with all our blood, sweat, and tears. And a conviction that we must never rest on pursuing until everyone, and I mean everyone, is free at last, just as Dr. King had prophesied. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Georges. I heard it a round of applause. Most definitely it is well deserved. So we could give him one more round of applause or virtual thumbs up, whatever it may be. But
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we would like to ask from our attendees if there's any questions for Mr. Georges. And if there's any that comes through our Google form, Ms. Marla will also bring those to the forefront. So any questions?
Don't be shy.
Well, Mr. Georges, while we check to see if there's anyone else with any questions at this time, I do have about 2 questions for you.
Okay.
I was curious to know, when did MLK's message become significant to you, or when did it begin to have an impact on your life? However, maybe you want to approach that question.
Okay, that's actually a very good question. So I remember this, I think I was about 12 years old, and growing up as a young boy in Zimbabwe, I never faced any systematic racism or oppression. So I remember my father used to watch a lot of CNN news. So it's only through him would I learn about, the history of what's going on around the world. And I remember there was a documentary that came up about Martin Luther King. And at first, what inspired me was, of course, that he was a very eloquent speaker. But what even inspired me more was what he stood for. Because at that age, I failed to understand what was it that made him be willing to sacrifice his comfort, be willing to sacrifice his well-being to sort out to take care of the well-being of others. That deep love and passion and conviction that he had for humanity, that's what drove me. So that's what made, I think, in that moment, even the famous I have a dream speech, you know, the fact that at the end that he mentioned he wants everybody to be free. And you could just see it in his face that his expression of freedom is different from most of the people when they say they want to be free. He saw freedom from point of that neither of us should be oppressed in any way. Neither of us should be made to feel guilty or because the color of our skin or how we pray, but instead we should be judged or respected rather based on the true nature, in his words, the true content of our character. So does that answer your question?
It did. Thank you. And then my last question for you is, do you believe that MLK's message is still relevant for the community of today in regards to how his dream, navigating into achieve that dream through nonviolence, actions, and so forth? Do you think that that plan of action, that strategy, is still relevant in today's society in order for people of color to make progress?
That's another good question. So I understand the frustrations of the African American community. I understand that the struggles that they go through, it's hard to maintain and not use violence and so forth to be heard. But what I understood from the nonviolent protest that Martin Luther King preached about a lot was he was going after, it was a moral perspective, you know. So he realized that if the oppressors are using violence and we respond with violence, they know what to do with that violence. You know, that's the equivalent of literally putting more fuel into the fire. But if the oppressors are using violence and then we're using non-violence, they don't know what to do with that. And then that right there enters into their conscience. That right there then enters into, it then questions their morality. And once you have, especially the ignorant questioning their morality, that's progress, right? But I understand the frustration of those who have been abused, oppressed, put down. And as he said it himself, Dr. Martin Luther King, riot is the language of the unheard, you know. But he always believed in long-term goals and using long-term solutions to solve these problems. So my personal advice would be, if we use violence, they will know what to do with that violence. But if we use non-violence and go after their morality and have them thinking consciously of what to do with people who are protesting peacefully, then that right there is progress.
Thank you, Mr. Georges.
May I have?
Yes.
May I have a question?
Yes.
You know, I want to ask this question because it reminded me of a former student of mine that from Africa as well. So this is what he said. I said, I'd never, coming from, you know, I think he was from Benin or, yes, one of those countries. He said, when I was in my country, I never experienced this kind of discrimination. So he said that it kind of make him really angry when he goes to a store. It seems like he sees several people, maybe a staff of that store, that kind of follow him the whole time around the store, watching him. And so he said, don't they know that I have money? That's what he's saying. So my question is that, have you experienced that kind of that kind of situation? And if yes, what did you do, or what can you tell other especially international students, that I know that they have a different kind of experience about this kind of discrimination or situation. So what can you tell them what to do? I think you might be frozen, Roger.
Yes. I think that Mr. George.
You might repeat your question. Thing to be breaking at my end.
You lost it, right? Okay. Yeah, we have, as I said, we have student that international student that complain that wherever he goes, especially in the store, he's being followed and kind of watched all the time. So he was saying, well, I have money. I said, why do they do that? And so of course, the explanation is, people, I think a lot of people here think that, in that situation, that you might just be stealing something in that store. And so what my question to you, have you experienced that kind of situation? And if yes, what did you do, and what kind of message you can tell other students that might be experiencing that situation? I think this is the worst part of having the technology. It always fails.
Yes, I think that his camera may be frozen. So we're gonna wait for. We're gonna see if he comes back into the video. Mr. Georges.
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem. So, Mr. Georges, got a quick question. Did you hear Miss Nelly's question?
No, unfortunately, I'd like her to repeat her question again.
Okay, Miss Nelly, I'm going to summarize.
Okay, please.
No problem. So, Mr. Georges, could you respond to how would you communicate to young adults of color in regards to them having experiences of racial profiling, being made to feel not wanted in certain spaces, like they are not, like they're not wanted, that this is not inclusive. How would you respond to young adults of today?
That's a very good question. So first, that's where it first starts.
I think we lost you there, Georges. Can you repeat what you said? I think, where are you? I think your sound always get cut off.
So what we can do, I'm not for sure exactly where Mr. Georges may be in his connection. I did Miss Nelly, I think your question is definitely very poignant in regards to where we are situated in regard to our social unrest in our communities and in the United States specifically. And I think that in general, I think that our young adults of today needs to know where they can go, where they can navigate themselves and so forth in regards to support, whether that be racial profiling, various isms and other biases and discriminations that they may face. Where do they go for support? Are we communicating out? If we want to build support to our young adults, are we communicating out that we are a resource, and then making sure that we are properly skilled with the tools to equip these young adults with? Because when you start talking about messages that Mr. Georges was communicating around MLK, nonbalance, and so forth, that may be very challenging for a lot of our younger adults to process, is that I feel like the fight is coming to me, but you're telling me not to go towards that fight. In regards to physicality and so forth, you're telling me to take this approach of non-balance. And so I think we just need to make sure that we are equipped with the tools to properly transfer over to these young adults in regards to how to move the message forward, how to address the issues and the ills that they face, and that they know where those support groups and networks are. I think that question that you just asked, that could be a program in itself.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I think that's because sometimes it's also difficult for me to advise students who are coming to you and saying and telling you that kind of situation. So thank you. I think it's very helpful. And also I think it's nice to also know that yes, there are people on campus or people that you know of that can be a part of the support group.
Most definitely. And well, Ms. Nelly, you bring up another thing too about those of us on this campus, and if we do see ourselves being a part of the support network for our students of color and so forth, how are we connecting to ensure that we are providing as much wraparound support to them as much as possible? And I will be the first to say I probably can do more of that, reaching out and connecting with you in your office, even about as a man who presents of color, presents Black. How can I provide support and maybe be a mentor, et cetera, to students that you are working with directly and so forth? So I think that, we all need to take that challenge of making sure that people know that we are a resource, if that's what we want to be, and if that is how we want to be seen. So, Mr. Georges, yes, ma'am, Ms. Nelly.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you again.
Oh, no problem. I mean, that's what we're all here for, is to make sure that we're supporting and connecting and being a resource for each other. So hopefully we can continue. We must continue to do that. And so, all right. As Mr. Georges, I'm not for sure if Mr. George will be able to transition back in, but are there any other questions or topics around this matter of nonviolence, Martin Luther King's message, how he motivated the troops? Man of one, but movement of many. I think we can say. Well, if not, what I'm going to do is close us out of this programming session. Definitely, Mr. George's words were very enlightening. It's hard for me to believe that, he is an undergraduate student and so forth, because his words come with so much conviction and spirit and wisdom beyond his years. And so I just want to say thank you to Mr. Georges for being a part of Black History Month 2021, the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. We invite everyone to join us this evening at 6 o'clock for Mr. Carl Bell, who will be giving the State of the Black Union address. Once again, that is 6 o'clock this evening, the State of the Black Union address. You surely do not want to miss it. At this time, we're going to close out this virtual session. I will end this live streaming and I will end the recording. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you soon.